Hey everybody, Steve Young here from Boomer Fitness. Just wanted to talk to you guys about just some basic points about how to get the most value out of your workouts, specifically for older men. So we're kind of looking at, probably the age 50 plus population here. So. In this video, we're going to focus mainly on the exercise component. My colleague and good friend Brian likes to break his approach down into three major categories. That is the exercise, the nutrition, and the mindset. So in this one, we are just going to kind of focus mainly on the exercise component. So, and before we get started with getting into the details, it's important to recognize that, especially with the age 50 and plus population, there's a very wide variance in their ability levels. So we need to really assess who we're working with first, and some of these points may apply to everybody, whereas some may be maybe not so much. So. The first thing I want to talk about is just being physically prepared. So, when we come into the gym, we have a set workout plan, and depending on what you're doing on your off days, you may or may not, you may have certain aches and pains, or maybe the exercises just don't feel right, and your physical preparedness is really going to make a difference as far as you getting the most out of your visit to the gym. So, when it comes to being physically prepared, of course, we need to make sure that you have adequate mobility. So. Things like doing certain stretches to increase your joint mobility at home, maybe doing stretches with your trainer at the gym, but mobility is going to be really key to making sure that we're able to do the movements properly. So mobility is going to be number one. And that kind of gets us right into our next one, which is the value of a good warm-up. So as we age, our warm-up is going to become more and more valuable to us as we age, because we need to make sure that our joints are warmed up. Again, back to mobility, we need to make sure that maybe we go through a few stretches. Depending on the person, this is going to differ a little bit. As trainers, we try to help our clients identify where they have weak points with mobility, and as somebody who's taking on this fitness lifestyle, you should try to also take it on yourself a little bit to, over time, identify where you need to increase your mobility and what is commonly a problem area for you. So, and then that's where you can throw those stretches in the warm-up, and maybe just a 5 to 10 minute good warm-up that involves doing the right stretches that you need to do your squats, your lunges, or to get your shoulders a little bit more loose to do upper body exercises. So mobility and a good warm-up, and the last little point I wanted to throw in there about being prepared is just being consistent with your workouts. We all know that if you haven't been in the gym for a couple weeks, maybe it was 9 days since your last workout, it's just not going to feel right. Things are going to ache a little bit more. You're going to feel weaker. So when it comes to being ready and prepared to work out, we need to make sure that you're consistently, following your program. And that's just going to make a really big difference for everybody, so we can make the results that we want to get. And also on the topic of being consistent, we need to make sure that there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done every week to make sure that we're ready to continue making progress, or make sure that we're not having a drop off with our progress, or maybe working backwards. So there's, we all know that if we come in and if we're only doing one set of push-ups every week, that's not going to do it. And so there's a certain level of kind of what we're going to call the minimum weekly volume of work that you need to be doing to stay consistent and be prepared. So being physically prepared is topic number one. And the second topic I'm going to talk about is just having effective programming. So that's where we kind of get into the details of how we're going to actually structure your workout. What movements we're actually going to be doing when we're here in the gym. So now that we've got you prepared, hopefully we have you flexible enough to do all the movements you want to do. So what movements are we going to be doing in the gym? And there's a lot of different approaches here, but I'm just going to kind of break it down into, let me just say, okay, so we're talking about the older men, so populations of age 50 plus. So what we really want to focus on is functional movements. So how can we make people move better outside the gym? Oftentimes this population is not really too concerned with how they look. That's kind of just a secondary benefit to exercise, but they want to be able to do more outside the gym. They want to be able to take on more activities, go for those hikes, perform chores better, do things with their grandkids, all those types of things, whatever it is. So a good way to approach exercise is to think about what the human body is able to do, or what are the kind of natural movements of the human body. And I like to refer to 7 human body movement patterns. This is kind of a template that was created by a relatively well-known trainer by the name of Paul Chek. So shout out to Paul for coming up with this nice kind of layout of human movement patterns. And they are push, so pushing movements, pulling movements, squatting, lunging, bending, rotating, and then gait is the last one. Gait just kind of refers to walking, jogging, and running. So one more time, we have pushing, we have pulling, we have squatting, we have our lunging movements. It can be backward lunging, forward lunging, lunging to pick something up off the ground, bending, referring mainly to, bending at the waist. Again, if you need to pick something up off the floor, rotating, so kind of doing these rotations, and gait. So there's many different forms of all these movements, but just 7 kind of key areas that we can focus our training on. So, and that's one thing we kind of want to have in the back of our mind when we're choosing the exercises we're going to use in our workout. Okay. Another thing to think about is planes of motion. So there are 3 planes of motion. They're the sagittal plane, which involves all movements moving frontward and backward. This is the most commonly seen plane of motion. Most exercises that most people choose to do are done in the sagittal plane. They're usually easier to do, and they kind of come to our mind first. So sagittal plane, we're all familiar with those movements. We have, pushing in the sagittal plane. We're doing, maybe our leg extensions, maybe, crunches. You see that's all in the front to back plane of motion. But when we look at, especially with aging populations, we need to be training in all different planes of motion, because when we go outside the gym, remember our goal is to improve our performance in activities outside the gym. We don't want to just perform well inside the gym. We want to be able to train in such a way that we can do more outside the gym. So we need to think about not only the sagittal plane, but we also have the frontal plane. That is our side-to-side movements. So anything involving resistance in this plane of motion here. So, this is the frontal plane here. Maybe I'm doing just side steps here. Things of that nature. This is our frontal plane of motion. And then the last plane of motion I want to talk about is the transverse plane. So that is anything that involves rotating. So resistance in the rotational plane. Okay? So when we're talking about the age 50 plus population, we don't just want to do everything in one plane of motion. We want to figure out how we can do those 7 human body movement patterns and how we can add challenges in different planes of motion. Okay? All right. So now that we have a good mindset on the movements we want to focus on, the next question becomes, how much do we need to do, or how hard do I need to work? And it's really important that we are able to create an adequate training stimulus to make sure that we move forward. One of the problems with our aging populations is that over time, and even without realizing it, they start to, they don't have the same goals that they did when they were younger that pushed them to try to perform better and better and better. They don't play football anymore, or whatever it is. They don't, maybe they don't have the same innate drive. They don't care as much about how they look, or whatever used to motivate them to work hard in the gym, maybe no longer there. So, it's really important that we can set lifestyle goals or come up with something that you want to achieve outside of the gym. Maybe you want to, go on some planned hike with your grandkids, or maybe you want to be able to run a 10K, or, whatever it is, but, something that's going to motivate you to achieve an adequate training stimulus, because we need to do enough work to actually get somewhere, to maintain our muscle and hopefully make progress. So strength training is really essential, because strength decreases by about 1% per year when we hit age 50, and as much as 3% per year once we get to age 70. And those numbers may seem pretty small, but it'll be a very noticeable difference, especially when it comes to doing day-to-day activities, especially when you get to that 3% per year. 10 years pass and you're 30% weaker than you were. That's going to maybe be the difference between being able to do something or not being able to do it. So, and proportionally, there's even more of a decrease in what's called type 2 muscle fibers, which are the fibers that are associated with, they're called fast twitch muscle fibers. They are used to create a little bit more quick explosive movements as opposed to real slow contracting movements. And in our day-to-day life, we need to use those fast twitch muscle fibers to complete daily tasks more often than the slow twitch muscle fibers. So, and those tend to decrease more rapidly. And by strength training, that's really one of the only ways that we can not only maintain them, but hopefully work on rebuilding them as well. Okay. All right, so moving right along, we have progressive overload is the key. So we need to have an adequate training stimulus, and the way to achieve that is to not only figure out what's kind of like the minimum amount of volume that we can handle. Volume meaning like how many sets, how many reps, just like how much work are we doing. But we also need to figure out how we can make progress with that. So for somebody who's just getting started, we need to just kind of figure out, where are they at? How much volume can they handle? And how much, most importantly, how much can you recover from? So, when we first get started, we may, maybe pick out a few exercises. Maybe you have, let's just say we have 7 strength exercises that we're going to focus on, and maybe you're just doing, just for example, 1 set of each of those. Then progressive overload, one of the ways we can progress it is by adding just a little bit more volume to it, by doing a little bit more sets and reps over time. But we can also add progressive overload by increasing the resistance over time, or maybe just kind of altering the exercise in a way that makes it more challenging. But there needs to be progressive overload. And a structured strength training program is very important, because if you don't have some sort of structure to your program, it's really hard to, over time, to know that you're doing more work than you were a month ago, and that progress has actually been made. So if no progress is made in the gym, then you won't see it reflecting on you gaining the muscle that you want, getting stronger. And so progress is absolutely key. And having good structure, once again, is how we can measure that. So I hope these tips have been helpful, and if you want some more of this good information, then subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time. And to all the Boomer Fitness members, we'll see you in the next workout.
Thanks for tuning in for this great exercise video, and I hope you enjoyed the content as much as I did. If you look below in the description box, you'll notice there's a link, and when you click on that link, it's going to take you to another page where you'll enter your email address. When you enter your email address, I'll give you your first week of workouts so you can take your fitness to the next level. So just go down the box below, click the link in the description box, it'll take you to that next page, and enter your email address. Also, when you look below, there's a subscribe button. When you click the subscribe button, you'll see a little bell. You want to click that little bell, and it'll keep you alerted when I come up with great content that you've asked for to keep your fitness and your health going to the next level. Also, make sure you go below in the comments section, leave any comments, questions, concerns, things that you want us to create for you. I'll be happy to produce that for you. Make it a great day.